Good evening, everyone. It's now 6:30, and I call to order the regular meeting of the Victoria City Council. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda this evening is announcements. I have just one announcement this evening. Earth Day is Monday, April 22nd, and this year to celebrate, the City Council and staff will be hosting a community walk. We'll be leaving City Hall at 5:30 on Monday, April 22nd, and we'll be back in time for our council meeting that evening at 6:30. Everyone is invited to join us, and there are no other announcements this evening. There is one proclamation at the desk this evening, and I'll read that aloud. Proclamation recognizing April 22nd, 2024 as Earth Day. Whereas Earth Day was first celebrated on April 22nd, 1970, to inspire an appreciation of the natural world through conservation and protection. And whereas the recognition of this day marks a commitment to environmental stewardship and the implementation of efforts to improve, protect, and enhance the environment. And whereas City Council will be participating in a community walk on Monday, April 22nd, in celebration of Earth Day, and welcome all to attend the walk from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. along the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail. And whereas the City of Victoria encourages residents to get outdoors and participate in Earth Day activities, such as community cleanups, water conservation, and tree plantings, I, Deborah McMillan, Mayor of Victoria, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2024 as Earth Day in the City of Victoria. Our next order of business is to adopt the final agenda. Council, can I get a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Motion to adopt the final agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to our next item this evening, which is open forum. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not an application form that will be coming to the council at a future date. Council members may ask clarifying questions, but an open forum is not intended to be a back and forth discussion and action from the council. Is not intended to be a back and forth discussion, and action from the council should not be expected this evening. Tonight's open forum includes the new city employee introductions. However, let's open it up to the audience before we begin introductions. Anyone who would like to address the council, please step forward. Welcome. Please adjust the microphone up. There you go. Okay. You're a tall guy.
How's this?
Yep, that's perfect.
This
and
okay?
Yep, perfect. And introduce yourself and provide your name and address for our record, please.
My name is Al Sherwood. I live in Chanhassen. Thank you for 5 minutes of your time this evening. I have addressed the Board of Commissioners of Carver County, and I'm in the process of addressing all of the city, council, and township meetings in Carver County with some of my thoughts on election integrity matters in Minnesota. Absentee and mail-in ballots, as many of us know, are documented to have the highest potential for fraud, including concerns with lost ballots, identity theft, and chain of custody issues. A certain administrative rule in Minnesota has made absentee voting a major election integrity issue. With regard to signature matching, state law requires that the voter must have signed the absentee ballot. The Secretary of State's office, along with an okay from an appellate judge, has in place Administrative Rule 8210.2450, which now allows for any voter to have signed an absentee ballot. Instead of making the common sense determination that the law requires that the same person sign both the application and the ballot, and that the signatures appear to be the same based on common sense and good judgment, the court essentially held that any person can sign any ballot for anyone without limitation. Even if there is a signature mismatch, according to the rule, the ballot must be accepted unless the names are different. The majority of votes in 2020, I'm sure as you know, were cast as absentee. Does it give you any confidence knowing that any person can sign any ballot for anyone? What could possibly go wrong with that? With regard to party balance, Simon's rule also subverted the legislature's intent that party-balanced election judges from the major parties accept or reject all absentee ballots. His rule makes election judges who keep the vote honest completely unnecessary on ballot boards and allows government staff to accept or reject absentee ballots, even if those staff members are themselves candidates on the ballot. Mail-in balloting has increased astronomically since Simon has taken office, as he's prioritized convenience over security every step of the way. Simon's rules told cities and counties that they could ignore party balance requirements and they didn't have to put any election judges on ballot boards, even though the law says they must. Ballot boards are like black boxes to me. The work is done behind closed doors instead of in open forums as required by law. Official challengers were wrongly denied the right to challenge at a meeting of an absentee ballot board. If they can challenge a person, they should be able to challenge an envelope that represents that person. I realize counties and cities are told what to do and what not to do by St. Paul, but I call on Carver County to make their ballot boards more transparent. And I also call on Minnesota to respect the rule of law that was put in place with the due process and not the opinion of one Secretary of State and one appellate judge. Video surveillance of drop boxes does not prevent people from putting in more than one ballot. This is a huge chain of custody issue. Wisconsin and other states have outlawed them. I call on Minnesota to do the same. Although it was a nationwide survey, given all this, it's not surprising then to see in a recent poll by Rasmussen alongside the Heartland Institute, found that in the 2020 election, 1 in 20 people who voted by mail committed some type of voter fraud. And that is, by the way, according to these people's own admission. Lastly, I believe that same-day registration is fraught with election integrity issues. Once again, Secretary Simon prioritizes convenience over security by turning a blind eye to a same-day voter registration process that allows anyone to vote and have their vote counted that night without verification. 47 other states have provisional balloting set aside, which sets these ballots aside to be counted after they are verified. And I call on Minnesota to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sherwood. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Please introduce
Hello,
yourself and provide your address for our record, please.
Hello, Mayor McMillan, Chad, Greg, Derek, and Andy. I'm Jennifer Ray, live also in Chanhassen, because this is a voting issue, and we had almost 100% turnout in 2020 of voters. That means that it is important to the people in the city of Victoria as well. I have a goal, and each of you can help me reach my goal. And my goal is to have on the absentee ballot board, which is in 2020 over 50% of our votes, to have, like we do when we do in person, to have Democrats and Republicans follow together each step of the way so that we have transparency, to have that on our absentee ballot boards as well. In 2020, we had 100% of our employees processing over 50% of our ballots. They're wonderful because they're employees, doesn't mean that they're dishonest, but they tend to be more Democrat in nature. The government pays their paycheck, gives them their pension, pays their health care, and so of course they want to support that. They also are employees of unions. Those unions gave 100% of the political parties in 2020 and 2022 to the Democrat Party. So we're just saying, and I've talked to a couple of mayors, I didn't specifically talk to you, Deborah, but I've called before, I've spoken to several mayors, and they're like, yes, makes perfect sense to have both parties. It's a nonpartisan issue that should be looking and working on the ballots as we process them from the A to Z process, from when they receive them to verifying signatures, which is now out the window, as Al just said. And we were actually supposed to have Republicans also, when they put them through the machine in 2022, we were supposed to have Republicans there to help if they got rejected, figure out what the voter wanted. We had zero, zippo, zilcho. So I am looking to get the commissioners who have so far resisted with the excuse that we have wonderful employees, so we don't need transparency, has been their reason or issue for that. And I would like full transparency in having both Republicans and Democrats presented and working on those absentee ballot boards. Now, the northern counties have moved this along because their leaders have stepped up to the plate and said, hey, we would like this. I've talked to Lucy Rem. She agrees that we should have party balance. I've talked to Julia Coleman. She agrees that we should have party balance. And so I'm asking for you also to join me in a nonpartisan request to have both parties from the A to Z process of the absentee ballots be processed by the major parties and not just county employees, to provide transparency. I will send you what I had printed out and forgot to bring today, which is from the League of Women Voters website, which shows prior to the end of December that we do have, it says on there, voting 411, don't worry about it. We've got both parties doing this. We've got both parties doing that. We've got both parties making sure that if your ballot's rejected, that they're deciding what the voter intent was. It's not one side. Well, thank you. That blew everything up when I did that at the commissioners meeting, because we don't do that in Carver County. So the League of Women Voters has actually changed their website to say our employees are nonpartisan, which if they vote, they aren't nonpartisan, because we have 100%, close to 100% voter turnout, 93.7 in the 2020 election. And so that makes them nonpartisan. They pick a side. They obviously voted. So we just want to make sure that we have Democrats and Republicans processing those, what could be half of our ballots, because both sides are pushing for the absentee voting. And I welcome your help on that. So they say, you know, hey, doesn't matter. They're nonpartisan. We trust them. I just want all eyes on the ballot, like when you go to in-person. My last, which is probably 45 seconds by now, is we also have a request, or I have a request for the cities themselves to pass a resolution that says we want to hand count, or have the option of hand counting the ballots as well. As of the end of this year, if we don't do it during the 2024 election, per Mr. Simon's new rules that they changed with the trifecta down there, that will be out. We will never be able to hand count. We will only be able to use machines if we don't get a resolution done beforehand that leaves the door open where we can actually hand count if we need to. Thank you very much, and I will send you what I forgot to give you.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council on an issue, on an item that is not on the agenda or on a future agenda? Very good. Seeing no one, then I will send this over to City Manager Dana Hardy for our new hire introductions.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This evening, as we have done in the past, is we have, was it last year, I believe, we started doing quarterly introductions of our new staff. So here we are, a new quarter, and we have a big group with us tonight. So we'd like to take a few minutes of your time and do some introductions of the staff that have started since our last time that we were in front of you. So we've got a great group, and I'm not sure who wants to start. I'm looking at Abby.
All right.
So come on up to the podium.
Let's go my left to right. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Abby Kaber, and I'm the new finance manager. I started in late February, so I've been here about a month and a half. And before starting here, I did 10 years in finance, most recently with C.H. Robinson and then a startup. What else? I live in Victoria. I'm a citizen here, so
Great.
I'm excited to work for the community that I live in. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome. Next? Yeah. We're going to go right down the line, friends.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Mick Kerr. I'm the newest member of the building department. I do not live in the city. I live in Delano, and very happy to be here. I started 2 weeks ago, maybe the 25th, I think, something like that, and hit the road running, and I'm happy to be here.
Great. Are you the newest newbie, Mick?
I'm sorry?
Are you the newest newbie?
I think by
I think
time of
Rachel's
employment,
probably got you beat.
I doubt if I'm the youngest.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
We'll find you a place in Victoria if you want to move here, Mick. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mark Nyes. I'm the new recreation coordinator here with the City of Victoria. Prior to that, I retired from the Department of Corrections in Shakopee. Been there for over 25 years, and here I am working here in the City of Victoria. So enjoying every minute of it.
Great. Welcome.
All right. Hi, I'm Rachel Dorff. I'm the newest city safety officer for the City of Victoria. I live in Minnetonka, grew up in Elk River, Minnesota. Just got back from a 14-month deployment to the southern border, and I'm excited to start something new. So,
Very good. Are you active duty still?
National Guard.
National Guard. Very good. Well, thank you for your service, and we are excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, Rachel started today officially.
Oh, so you are the newest newbie. Very good. That uniform looks awesome, by the way.
Hi, I'm Henry Vetter. I'm one of the newer streets department guys, I guess, and I've been living in Victoria my whole life. So, yeah, I'm super excited to start working here. So,
Very good. Well, welcome, Henry.
thank you.
Last but certainly not least, certainly not least.
Good evening, guys. Thank you so much for, really appreciate that time for you guys introducing employees. That's actually really nice. I've been working with trucks.
Tell us your name.
My name is Mauricio Salguero, and I work for the street department. And I've been working with trucks, and for the last couple of years, I work for the city of Shakopee also, and the same department, Public Streets. So I'm excited to work. You guys have a great team in here, and the city looks clean and nice. So good job what you guys are doing here. I'm very impressed also. So whatever you guys need, we're there in Public Street.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome to all of you. Thank you. Any closing remarks? This looks like a fine crew to add to our already fine crew. Thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, yes, it's just a great opportunity for us anytime that we can connect you all with the faces that keep our city working and looking beautiful. We'd like to do that, and it provides an opportunity for our community members to also see the people behind the magic. So thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time here this evening. We've got a great crew.
Yeah, indeed we do. Thank you again for coming out this evening. We appreciate that.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. We are now moving on to our consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine, administrative, and do not require deliberation or are housekeeping items required by law. They're approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Hardy, does staff wish to pull any consent agenda items for separate discussion and vote this evening?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Any members of the council wish to pull anything from the consent agenda this evening? Or anyone in the audience looking to pull anything from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve or accept the consent agenda.
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
We have a motion. Can I get a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now moving on to the regular agenda. The first item on the agenda this evening is item 6.1. Presenting this evening is our Assistant City Manager and Finance Director, Trish Pollock. Trish, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. A couple weeks ago, we wrapped up our 2023 audit. And prior to our May meeting, when the auditors will be here to present the annual comprehensive financial report, we are required by law to have a balanced budget, which requires us to do some year-end fund balance assignments and transfers. So I'm here tonight to review those items with you. So I have a list of the 23 proposed assigned fund balances, and included in those, the first 4 on this list are really our routine assignments that you see annually. And then we also have several that are carryovers, so items such as the playground that we weren't able to complete in 2023, but would like to complete in 2024. So a portion of that. And as you can see, there's quite a list, so I'm open for any questions on any specific items rather than going through and reading them off to you.
Okay, so this is the list of where we intend to assign our fund balance.
Correct.
Council, questions for Ms. Pollock on this list? It was all included in our packets, but we want to make sure everybody gets their questions answered.
The mobile city hall council engagement trailer. I'd like to know more about. I'm not sold on the idea, and I'm just not, so I'd like to know more.
Very good. Ms. Hardy, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Council Member Gunderson, yes, this is something that we discussed last year. And I think you are all aware that we do have a tent and a table that we take with us to different community events. That tent is large, it's heavy, it's quite cumbersome. It takes a lot of time to set up. We're also dragging lots of materials that we're storing in other places and dragging that with us when we go to those events. And so the trailer allows us to store all of our supplies that we're using when we're going out into the community to do those engagement events, whether they're activities, brochures, etc. And it also provides us an easier setup and cleanup. That doesn't take more than 2 or 3 people to do. So it could be easily managed by one staff person if possible. The other benefits that come from that, as we discussed previously, was really around stepping up our engagement efforts. So we know that as people have become busier, their lives are busy, they're balancing a lot of things, that we want to be more accessible as a city hall, as a community. And in part by doing that, we've been trying to reach people where they're already gathering. And so having the mobile trailer allows us to put our city hall on wheels essentially and go and provide limited services to where people are already gathering and engage people in a way that just enhances the level from what we're doing now. So for example, if we have neighborhood meetings, instead of having people meet always here at City Hall for neighborhood meetings, we could do that in the area that is being impacted. Another example would be to have a pop-up park. So if we're talking about an improvement, what's on here right now, the Deer Run Park, for example. If we were to have that, if that would have been now, right, that we were starting that project, instead of pushing out a survey and asking people to come here and share ideas with us here, we could bring that community engagement trailer out to that park, meet people in the community, and engage them. The other things that we had talked about that would be part of that would be kind of mobile notary services. You could pay a utility bill. So let's say you're at the park visiting your kid. You could also drop off a utility bill. You could also make those payments. We could help you with registrations, answer question about permits, and all of those things would be a lot of times even outside of our core business hours. So it enhances our level of service as well. So those are just some of the examples that we've talked about. We would intend to deploy this this community trailer in the different events that we already have, our winter lighting ceremony, our classic car events, our farmers market, to name a few, truck rodeo, pop-up splash pad. But we just think it takes our community engagement efforts and our ability to serve our community to the next level.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Hardy. Mr. Councilmember Gunderson, any further questions or thoughts? Okay.
I don't, having talked to community members about this particular item and some of the other stuff on the fund balances, I didn't get an overwhelmingly supportive feeling from people. A lot of the feedback I got was, we're a small town. Where are we going to take it? So I think the money would be better served in maybe a Parks and Trails fund to help us connect a trail, or to work to start to go towards a trail. I don't know if it's worth the money. My engagement with a tow-behind trailer is that within 5 years it's forgotten about and not used. And the one that the Dugout Club uses for baseball literally sat for 4 years, didn't get used until this year, and it needed upkeep. So I'm just concerned that after 4 years we're going to have something just sitting there. Maybe I'm wrong, but typically that's what happens with the trailers.
I think in our conversations, as we kind of talked through the mobile city hall idea and just meeting our residents where they are, I feel like this gives us a great presence. It's a great asset. It's got good branding on it, so people know what they're looking at and they know what kinds of questions that they can bring to the trailer. We can move it around from place to place. I just feel like in this day and age where our communication with our residents is really super important, that we need to meet them where they are rather than always encouraging them to come to us or, fill out a survey and those kinds of things. I know that we had good success when we were out meeting with the public on our parks plan last year as we kind of took that out, and this just gives us a bigger, more visible presence, and it's an idea that I'm really supportive of. Other council?
Just a
Councilmember Reif, please.
Comment. I think to Councilmember Gunderson's point, I think 5 years ago, I would think it wouldn't be as good of an idea as today. I think with our population 11,000 plus now, I think we're at the level that we need to start thinking about these kind of things to get out in the public. So I am supportive of that from an awareness perspective, to get out, to get the name out, and all what we're doing out in the public. The one point that you made on Councilmember Gunderson is we have to really focus on using it annually, the upkeep, and continue to use it. I think that would be a focus because it is a sizable investment.
Indeed.
So, just my comment.
I'm just going to point out two of the events that we're going to tow it to are literally outside the door. And so, meeting people where they're at, we're here. I don't know, we don't have parks that draw thousands of people. We have the car event, some farmers markets, and then our neighborhood in August. So the neighborhood August meetings or the events, which we use other vehicles for anyway. So that's my feeling. But
thank you. Council, other comments?
I guess I would just say, we do have a lot of built-in things that we would, right? Like farmers markets every week, right? So, and it's, this is part of not having to haul stuff down there. You've got a trailer, you've got seating for people to sit there and fill out, right? If they're filling out paying a bill or whatever. You also have the car show, right? Which is, we have numerous events that
and I get the car show is right out here, right? But I don't know. I just think it's a better versus just having a table right there, and you don't have all the things that you need, right? Where we will have everything that we need in this.
Yeah, and I think it's more enticing for people to step forward to a trailer rather than come through the door at City Hall. If they're down here at the car show, they might not be thinking that somebody's going to be here, or the counter's not going to be open at 6:30 on a Wednesday evening. So, and this is, yeah, it does provide a great, makes everything a lot easier for our employees who are.
And I guess I would just add too, right? Like, we're just talking about the things that we currently do. Like, this is also to help us do things that we're not currently doing, right? So.
Good.
I just had a question for Dave left, so he might be better to address it. Is there room in the old Public Works garage to store this trailer in so that we can have a longer life from it from inclement weather, wearing it out sooner?
Yeah, Ms. Hardy, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Urbanski, members of the council. Yes, we do. The trailer, I wouldn't say is super large, but it's substantial. And we've measured out space, and we have the ability to store it both at either at the fire station in part of the Bay Area there, in one of those bays, or at the old public workshop. So there's the ability to store in either of those places.
And I'll just throw some comment, as not so much question. When we had Night to Unite this last year, I had the pleasure of being on the South Route, which we have a pretty substantial amount of community down there that does seem like it's a little detached from, what other people might say is up here. So going forward with this, I think it would be beneficial to use that to maximize our impact at events like that and bring City Hall closer to where some of our residents are. But overall, I think I'm still supportive of this idea.
Just one more thing too, I think they're already doing it, but I think, right, this just gives our Park and Rec group, right, to think about more ways to use it, right? Like whether they're out for programming type stuff and things, so.
Yeah, Ms. Hardy, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just to build on that, Councilmember Roberts, yes, we have spoken with both our Senior Advisory Committee and our Parks and Rec Committee, and they are already thinking up lots of ideas to ramp up their level of engagement utilizing this resource. So it is something that they're very much looking forward to that investment, and then being part of being the ambassadors to our community in their respective areas. Overall, it just makes City Hall and city as a government arm a lot more approachable for our community members.
Any other comments on this item or any of the other items on the fund balance? Seeing none, Ms. Pollack, please continue.
Thank you, Mayor. So my next slide is showing what the year-end transfers are being proposed, and included in that is the Revenue Stabilization Fund of the $409,262, which is per our Revenue Stabilization Fund policy, to use to increase that fund balance when we do have permit revenues higher than the building expenditures. And then the long-term street maintenance fund for some of those street needs that we have coming up, several million in the next 3 to 7 years. And then the capital facilities fund of $226,000, which includes a portion of the design for the new fire station.
Ms. Pollack, a question for you on this. These are transfers that are above and beyond the transfers that were already built into the current budget. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay, very good. All right, council, questions on this?
I mean, I have just a quick
Councilmember
question.
Adamski.
Like, I know that we have policy to move the building excess revenue into a revenue stabilization fund. We have that fund after this projected to be rather sizable. Would we be prudent to take a pause from our policy and have this excess revenue be directed towards our capital facilities fund so that we can get as far ahead on the fire station as we possibly can to minimize the use of debt? Or would we be able to withdraw from the stabilization fund and use it for our fire guns? I mean, I just feel like
Excellent.
we have such a huge opportunity to build the right fire station for this community. It is something that is at the core of what we do, and that's saving lives. And saving lives, we need our firefighters to have the best facilities possible within our resources. And I kind of feel like this might be an opportune time to say we can deal with instability in revenue at this point a lot better than we can deal with trying to combat what are seemingly historically higher interest rates, and our ability to not bond for as much. We should take every opportunity that we can to reduce that and leave also that bonding capacity for other things that are going to come along. We need to pay for Highway 5. We need to pay for it with bonding. I would rather have the capacity there to the highest extent possible, and it might be prudent for us to take a pause on this policy to move towards those directives. So I put that to you, council members, for consideration. Is that something that we might want to consider, or do we need to?
Councilmember Evansky, that's an excellent question, an excellent point. Ms. Hardy, please, can you?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Evansky. Excellent point. I agree, and it's something that staff have already looked at. So we know that the future fire station is going to be quite the investment, and we are looking for alternative sources of revenue to pay for that. And I think we staff share your concern about trying to pay for cash as much as we can for some of these projects. So we're reducing the amount that we have to bond. So I think we're certainly hearing you all from a policy perspective and are all aligned there. So that makes me feel good. The thing I would like to say about the Revenue Stabilization Fund is certainly I do think that there is an opportunity to look at the Revenue Stabilization Fund as a source of revenue for the future fire station. The reason that we are saying this is because we do know that our Revenue Stabilization Fund is restricted by policy for expenditures relating to building-related expenses. And that is served us well, as some of you have been around and are very familiar with some of the conversations and the pressure that communities are receiving from the group Housing First, who are really looking at these building permit revenues very closely, and how cities are, not just in Victoria, but across the region, expending those funds. And so we spent many months, a couple years back, meeting several times over with the group, and a focus of those conversations for many months was our Revenue Stabilization Fund and how those funds were being allocated. And so I think because our building department, we have made an operational decision that there's enough synergy there. Our building department is part of the public safety division. And with that, I think we can make a really good case that the funds, the building related permit funds, or funds that come from the Revenue Stabilization Fund could certainly be a source of revenue. I would want to spend some time with Trish really looking at how we make a determination of how much funds can come from that source. So we'll want to do something, whether it's it's going to be some sort of allocation, whether it's based on a percentage of the building that they're taking up or bits and pieces that they're using, we're going to want to take a closer look at that and make sure that we can really align the expenditure with the use. But it's certainly something that has been on our radar. My recommendation to the council is if that's something that you want us to look at, know that that was something we had planned to look at. But I would really want to make sure that we're doing that math and we can come with a really good case to say this is how much we think can be supported to make sure that we're still within policy and we're using those funds as they were intended to be used, which is to support those building related activities.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks for that. I mean, my thought is that those are a very noble pursuit to look to see for that as a means that. But where my head is at right now is that we can take a pause on policy because that's our purview to do so, and have only $763,000 in jeopardy of a decision of yes we can, no we can't, and then not add $409,000 to that question of can we use this, can we not use this, how much can we allocate, how much can we not allocate. I just would put it out for consideration that if we make the decision at this point in time now not to fund the Revenue Stabilization Fund and fund our capital facilities fund with that, then we know that $400,000 does not be subject to trying to make this decision and be potentially in a spot where we will not be able to access those funds. It's somewhat of a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Right, understand. Just to clarify, just so I understand what you're asking, you're saying rather than move this $409,000 to the revenue stabilization, you'd rather see it go to the capital facilities fund.
Right.
Ms. Hardy, you're shaking your head. Tell us.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Certainly, you can make whatever decision that you want. I would just caution you in doing that because the money that would be allocated for the Revenue Stabilization Fund is money that was directly coming from building permit revenues. And so, as you know, the way that we budget, we kind of get our magic 8-ball out, and we never know how much development is actually gonna occur, and we don't. So, last year in June, we didn't know, or in 2022 in June when we were setting the budget for 2023, we had no idea how many developments were actually going to come to fruition. You look at historical data, we kind of work with the developers and we try to get a sense, and we do the best that we can, but it's never for certain. And so this number, this 409,000, represents what we collected beyond what we projected. And so that is actually the money that the Housing First folks are really looking at. And I think they've made the case is that you've over collected and you should distribute that back to people. And we're saying, no, it still covers our costs. We just didn't know how many that we were going to have, right? It's a number in the dark, right, that you're just trying to figure out. I'm not articulating that very well, so I don't know if Trish or Bob may have something to add. But if you don't, my concern would be if you don't expend those funds for building related stuff, whether it's specific, and we've already done the calculations and applied the overhead and applied everything. This is what's left over from last year. If you don't put this to your revenue stabilization funds where it can be dedicated for building related use in the future, I think you put yourselves on the radar potentially for some follow-up with the Housing First people. But you can it's certainly a policy decision. I just want to make sure that you would be making that with all the information available to you.
Understand. So one of the things that I want to clarify about this Revenue Stabilization Fund and these building permits. So as we go through the building or the budgeting process every year, we estimate how many new homes we think we're going to build. And we think we're going to build 130 new homes. At the end of the year, once we've built 150 homes, it's those extra 20 homes that are creating this excess of our budget. So we're trying to predict how many homes we think we're going to build. If they build more than that, that's where the excess money comes from. It's not that we're collecting excess money.
Correct.
So I want to be very clear about that. But I'm also interested in Councilmember Evansky's idea here that this money could be used for a badly needed new fire station. And understanding where you're coming from with let's connect the dots on this with our building department, which is also going to be housed out of that new fire station. So I'm thinking that we can do that. I'd like to do that. I'm not sure how cumbersome it is to go ahead and transfer this into the Revenue Stabilization Fund and then transfer it back out to the Capital Facilities Fund. Yeah, Trish, you have something to tell me.
Thank you, Mayor.
Tell us.
So I'd just like to explain a little bit about the Revenue Stabilization Fund. That is a committed fund, which means that it's committed by council resolution. So you would just need to do a resolution to spend that money on, say, the fire station, however council wants to do that. So it's not restricted by an external stakeholder. So you do have the authority to make that decision. Now, in my opinion, it's more transparent for you to put it into the Revenue Stabilization Fund because that is how our policy reads. Now, once it's in there, since it is a committed fund, you would just need to make that change by resolution to spend it on.
So we could select the amount of money we want to.
Right, and it would likely be that we would do a resolution that would say that there is X amount of square feet of a facility that is going to be used for the building department, and we would come up with some sort of a cost share for the building department, and we would remove the money or transfer the money out of the Revenue Stabilization Fund to pay for that portion of the facility, or however that would be read, but it would be something that you'd be able to do. And again, I just, in my opinion, think it would be more transparent to let it flow through the way that it's intended.
Okay, so in the interest of time and transparency, we can have the staff explore this opportunity of using some money from the Revenue Stabilization Fund to help pay for the fire station and do it by resolution at that point in time. Yeah, Councilmember Gunderson, please.
Just the other thing I'd want to know is how much does this policy play into our credit rating? And if we're taking money out of the Revenue Stabilization Fund, I can see Tammy Amdahl saying something about the Revenue Stabilization Fund relating to our credit rating, but I can't remember exactly what she said.
Ms. Pollack?
Yes, good question, Councilmember Gunderson. Yes, that is something that the credit rating does look at, but we also have done interfund loans from the Revenue Stabilization Fund as well, and it has not affected our credit rating. A lot of our credit rating is based off of our policies, our strong financial policies, and our
That would be the first thing, though, that I would want to see would be if we put this policy on hold, which is, I think, what we're being asked through the recommendation to take the money from here without moving it or putting it in the stabilization fund, would be to put that policy on hold. I think is what you've asked, right?
Essentially, yes. So that we.
So, I mean, before we put any policy on hold, I would want to take a look and see what it does to our credit rating, especially this one in particular. So it's not so much the dollar amount or the inter-fund transfers that I'm concerned with, because we do that and well aware of that. Want to make sure that the policy on a policy level, that we're not getting rid of a policy that all of a sudden drops us from the highest rating we have to something other to make it more expensive on every other project that we bond for. So that's kind of where my question lies.
Yeah, and it is always a concern, and we're very, careful about the decisions that we make because of our credit rating. We did get our AAA rating reaffirmed this past fall when we had the $763,000 balance in it. So it wouldn't affect it if you just because you put money in and took money back out. Again, saying that you use this $409,000 towards the fire station. I don't see that would make any effect on our credit rating.
Very good. I guess at this point, if council has any other questions or comments, I'm favoring going ahead and putting it into the revenue stabilization fund and then having staff do some work on using some of that money to pay for the fire station and then do a resolution at that time. I think from a transparency perspective, it makes sense.
That's fair, and I think it just begs an overall question among us that to take a deeper dive on this and figure out, is the policy still fit with what our needs are today? We adopted it in 2009. We adopted it at the end of the financial crisis, which was the worst recession the United States has ever seen since the Great Depression. It may not be appropriate to have it sized that way. I also feel that these 5 people sitting at the dais run the city of Victoria. Housing First does not, and we should manage our money in a prudent manner that we feel is appropriate for the citizens of Victoria, long-term financial interests. So I am respectful of Councilmember Gunderson's view on what could this be impacting our credit rating, but at the end of the day, we have some very large projects to be paid for, and we need to use every tool in our toolkit to be able to reduce the costs of our citizens to be able to provide the best quality services at the lowest possible prices.
Well stated. Thank you, Councilmember Ivansky. Any other questions, comments on this slide? Great. Ms. Pollack, moving on.
Okay, so then finally, I would ask the council to consider passing these 3 resolutions.
Okay, so we want to take these 3 separately. Any final comments, questions on this item? If not, then I would entertain the first motion, please.
Motion for resolution approving fund balance assignment and transfers for year-end 2023.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Hey,
Is that noted? The nay is noted? Yes, correct. Motion carries. I'll entertain a second resolution, please.
Make a motion for resolution approving the 2023 year-end transfer to revenue stabilization fund balance.
second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. And the third and final resolution.
I'll make a motion for a resolution approving the temporary interfund loan for financial reporting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Our next item is item 6.2. It's a closed meeting to discuss the sale of real property. Council, a private property owner has made a request to purchase a portion of a city-owned outlot in Deer Run described as Outlot Q. Minnesota statutes allow us to go into closed meeting to develop and consider offers or counter offers for the purchase or sale of real property. I will now make a motion to close this meeting pursuant to Minnesota statutes, section 13D.05, subdivision 3C3, to develop or consider a counteroffer for the purchase or sale of real and/or personal property. The property that is the subject of the closed meeting is Outlot Q in the Deer Run neighborhood in Victoria. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. For those of you with us here this evening or watching us at home, the meeting will now go into closed session in the room adjacent to the council chambers. Council, necessary staff, and the city attorney will meet in closed session and return to the chambers when finished to reopen our meeting and provide a summary of the closed session as required by law. While we are in closed session, our video will display a splash screen indicating we will return shortly. We will now go into closed session. All right. I make a motion that we reopen our meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Councilmember Reif. And I will provide a summary of what council discussed in their closed meeting. So the council has opted not to accept the offer for the property, for the sale of property. And if the applicant is interested in considering a variance, the city would entertain having those application fees waived for the future. Staff will be available after the meeting to discuss any questions. Next up on the agenda is item 6.3, which is a public hearing for an easement vacation for 2145 Gallery Court. Presenting this evening is our city planner, Brian McCann. Mr. McCann, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have a public hearing for easement vacation at 2145 Gallery Court. A little bit about the property. It is west of County Road 43 at the end of Gallery Court's cul-de-sac. It is one of 2 lots that was approved in the gallery at Victoria 2nd Edition, whose final plat was approved in 2006, and standard easements were signed with the plat. It's zoned PUD with R1 residential underlying zoning, and it's adjacent to an outlaw of Deer Run. So that outlot, the easement vacation would not be necessary if a land purchase was agreed upon this evening, and approximately 0.5 acres were proposed by the applicant this evening. The outlot sale was contingent upon the closed session discussion we just had. So the easement proposed to be vacated is a 10-foot wide drainage and utility easement. They would add a new 10-foot easement along the new southern boundary of the property. The applicant is requesting the vacation to allow the future pool in a rear yard, and the easement vacation is contingent upon the closed session discussion, as I mentioned. If the land sale was approved, city staff would also be able to approve the minor subdivision request to adjust the lot lines. Some shoreline considerations. It does not meet the bluff definition, so it's exempt from bluff impact zone setbacks, which is an additional 20 feet from the back property line. The watershed did review it and is not requiring wetland delineation. And just some information on impervious surfacing, it's currently over the 25% allowable percentage at 27.5%, but after the proposed sale, it would have been 19.2%. So tonight, this application does include a public hearing. The easement vacation request requires 2 notices consecutively in our newspaper. So it was noticed in the March 28th and April 4th editions of the Chanhassen Villager. And property owners within 350 feet of the property boundaries were also notified of the request this evening. Staff did not receive any comments on the proposed easement vacation. So with that, staff's recommendation is to hold a public hearing on the request and then adopt the resolution vacating the drainage and utility easement at 2145 Gallery Court.
Very good. Thank you. This is a public hearing, so I will now open the public hearing. If there's anyone who wishes to speak to this item, please come forward. Seeing no one coming forward, I will now table this public hearing and open the floor to council discussion. Council, is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, I will now table the public hearing while staff and the landowner communicate. And I will, do I need a motion to table?
You do, Mayor.
I make a motion that we table the public hearing while staff and the landowner communicate. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Council, there are no more items on our regular agenda, so with that, we will move on to reports and emerging issues. Attorney Vos, any reports from you?
I don't. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Hardy, anything from staff?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
And council, anything from council this evening? Yeah, Councilmember Gunderson, please.
With Southwest News Media announcing that they're going to shutter publication, what do we need to do to upgrade our, or to update our publication process?
Ms. Hardy?
Thank you,
You
Mayor.
have some comments on that?
Yes, Councilmember Gunderson, great question, members of the council. So yes, this news was a surprise to us, so we did not expect that. So we're very sad to see the local paper go. We have received 3 quotes. So we are working to bring you an item on your next agenda. So April 22nd, you will be taking some action, or you'll be asked to consider designating a new official newspaper. And so we are in the process of kind of compiling and looking at those quotes so we can bring that information to you. And you'll, what you'll want, because you adopted a resolution initially in January. So this will just be a resolution that kind of takes the place of the official newspaper designation. We've also been having some internal communications with our team on how we make sure we get the word out to our community on where they can go to see official notices. So we're coming up with a strategy on what that will look like. I would like to note for the public hearing that was already noticed in the newspaper for the Planning Commission on the 16th, that meeting has been canceled. And so what will happen is that when a new public hearing is identified for that date, we will re-notice in the new official newspaper when that public hearing will be. For people who might be looking for information on what that means if they show up for the meeting, we will be posting that meeting cancellation notice on the door, and with that we will include a note that indicates that the public hearing that was noticed earlier will be rescheduled for a future date, and that will be noticing that in the official newspaper as well.
Will,
Councilmember Gunderson?
do newspapers typically put the notices online? Are they putting those online, or is it just printed? I don't remember.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Gunderson, members of the council, I think if memory, okay, I see our city clerk probably has the answer.
They were posted online as well.
Okay.
No, yeah. So can we just make sure we get, if once we have that kind of changeover, we post those?
Oh, internally on our website, are you asking about?
Just a link to the newspaper, the new location, because if it's something that people aren't getting to their homes right now,
Yeah.
just have something look. Yeah, we understand that this is a
Yes.
change here. We'll link
Yes,
it
and-
here so that you can find it.
Yep, Councilmember Gunderson, Mayor, members of the council, that is exactly the strategy that we're discussing internally on what's the best way to make sure that we can redirect people to where the new information will be coming from.
I'm just kind of curious from like, in this digital age, right? Has the state ever, right? Like, I mean, newspapers unfortunately are dying a little bit. You know, it's getting better, but I'm sure there are much smaller towns that have much larger issues than we do with this type of thing. Like, has that been considered of changing this rule of how notices are done?
Yeah, Mayor and council members, perennially it's considered. The fact of the matter is that Minnesota has a very large number of community newspapers. They have a strong voice at the legislature, and they've done a good job of carving out some requirements for continuing to have publication, literally publication of notices. That's always an issue, though, that's coming up, and I guess I'm going to go again, lean out over my skis again. Eventually, that's going to change. I mean, clearly, the world is moving toward that form of notice as not being the form anyone uses. Eventually, it'll change, but for now, it remains a requirement for certain of the hearings and other things that we do, that we publish, literally publish notices.
Are those notices also on the city website? They are published on the city website as well. Okay.
And we would be able to physically post a public notice on the front of City Hall as well and be able to be compliant with the law. Correct?
Yeah, and Mayor and Council, in fact, you're quite right. There are, in addition to publication requirements, there are typically posting requirements, and there are other things that cities, of course, do, like putting it on your website and getting the notice out in other ways. But you're right, there are legal requirements to post in addition to publish typically.
So, I mean, I think in our history, we've published those public notices in a physical, window box attached to the front of City Hall. We could, in addition to everything else, reconvene that practice, could we not?
We do that.
We do that? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's just Mayor and Council, just to be clear, for hearings at least, there's a variety of different things that we have to give the public notice of. Hearings is the most obvious, but the posting requirement is in addition to publication requirement. It's not an alternative to it. It's a in addition to requirement. So
thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you for the question, Councilmember Gunderson. Council, anything else? All right, there are no more items to come before the body this evening, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilmember Evansky. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.